2.5 minutes.
Well, thank you very much. Going for what you have, your 10 values and principles, is not to allow increases in greenhouse gas emissions, and that's in your principles. And the fact that we're looking at a possible million barrel a day increase. How do we square that? Are you telling us that it's possible to increase production by a million barrels a day and not have any greenhouse gas emissions?
And so you're getting the million barrels increase from the Canadian Energy Regulator forecast report?
Yep, and from what's planned from TMX, which is being finalized and built.
Yeah, again, we take a look at that forecast from the Canadian Energy Regulator and see it as one of many prognostications about what the future will look like. Some of them, the one we rely on the most, frankly, is the International Energy Agency, which predicts by 2050 gas consumption globally will be down by 55% and oil by 75%.
I see that, but the fundamental problem here is that greenhouse gas emissions have continued to rise dramatically.
Especially in the oil and gas sector, sir.
In the oil and gas sector, you're right. So when the Prime Minister stood at Paris and said Canada's back, since then the Environment Commissioner said that we have become the outlier of the G7, that we have gone from failure to failure. Then the Prime Minister stood at COP26 and said there would be an emissions cap without talking to you guys. I'm asking a straightforward question. If we're going to be moving forward with increases in production, how can we tell anybody on the planet that we're actually going to be doing what you call prioritizing early and deep productions? These are two contradictory positions. Will you be advising the government that they're going to have to move towards capping production in a serious way in order to cap emissions? That seems to be the logical question here. Do you agree?
No. Well, no. There's a couple. I'll unpack that question. We're not going to advise on capping production because this is about emissions.
Okay, but can you tell me that you can increase upwards of 1 million barrels a day or more and actually then decrease emissions? Are you saying that that's possible?
We're not addressing that question because it's an artificial question. The concept of
that's not an artificial question. That is the real question that the planet is facing. That is your obligation to tell me that that's an artificial question. If you're mandated not to have an increase in emissions, then how do you tell me that you could have an emission increase in production and that the question of the emissions is not a factor? That's your job.
Well, there's a tension here between production levels and intensity. If you combine production levels with the intensity of the product, you get emissions. So there actually are scenarios where.
But have you ever seen those scenarios? The emissions have gone up year after year. They've never gone down.
You know what? I'm going to have to jump in.
Artificial. This is we're talking real world here.